Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming by. I'm very thankful to have Jackmade on as a guest today. I've been doing a lot of ob-focused content with Blum lately, and Jackmade came on and said, "Hey, I've been doing really well with this Calicana or calibration testing kind of op list. We should talk about that too." And he is absolutely right. It is one of the best performing, most consistent obelisks in the meta, and so it was definitely worth having him on for a conversation. And I'm glad we were finally able to make that work. Jackmate, do you want to say hi and maybe a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and hello everyone. Um, I I'm playing Netrunner since mostly. Not since the really beginning of the FFG era, but since I think 2013, middle of 2013, and never looked back. It's my favorite game since then. And I think in 2016 I was one of the founding members of NWE together with Per Commis. So maybe that's something where you can put me in some perspective. I'm one of the European players from Germany. And since this new ID of Super Heavy Logistics was released, I was very intrigued because I was always interested in decks that were very consistent in what they do, and the op ability, is basically giving you every game what you want if you have in mind what you actually want, because you can always trash something and then get something that you really need in the situation. So I was from the get go. I was drawn into playing with the idea, but in the beginning I wasn't really happy with what I found. And the first, I think, memorable deck list that I played was still with Skunkworks, and that was when I played UK Nets 2022 and got 10th with it. And I was really happy with how it performed and with how all the pieces work together, with border control, being able to fetch another ice after you end the run, which was nice in the beginning to rush, but also getting something like a tech card like Virus if you need it.
Yeah,
So that was the start of it.
yeah,
Um,
and
it,
then the Automata Initiative came out and gave us Tucana, which I think kind of I feel like really changed how the obelisk played. Other things changed in the meta a lot, but I feel like Takana made these kind of aggressive scoring based game plans like it went from being like a good deck to being, I think, like one of the decks you really want to be thinking about when you're trying to evaluate what's going on in the meta. And I took that one way, and I've been talking with other people about how how the kind of the Managarm Tucana line kind of went. But I think you and NWE took it in this other really interesting direction that leans much more on calibration testing. So I guess, like, what was the thinking that got you started on this calibration testing as potentially a core piece in this ops scoring plan?
the funny thing is, actually, I didn't start with Tucana. I think the ideas started back when Tucana wasn't released, when the Automata Initiative wasn't released yet. And there
Okay.
I had a very we had that's one thing that was the starting point. We had a league in an in-house league in NWE, and I just wanted to give it another spin. I wanted to play ARP, but didn't want to play the same list as before. And so I was thinking, okay, the fast advance plan in the late game is pretty good. So how can I make it a little bit more of the central plan of the deck? So I just put in calibration testing, which was already good because it has the trash ability. So you get an op trigger when you use it. And I think I didn't have that much to get with it, and that was something that I realized in that I played one game with it and was okay. It worked out well, and I think I had also had Archer in there and the 0-2 agenda, like some weird stuff that I just tried. And I think, the 2-cost card that I actually played was Oberth protocol. Yeah,
Oh, that's really
that's what I
funny.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so that I could calibration testing on the agenda, get the Oberth protocol for feed either in a hostile protocol or the 0-2 agenda, and then get extra advancement tokens and overscore an Atlas or something like that. And that worked
Yeah.
kind of okay. But then when the Meta initiative came out, I realized, okay, Oberth is the one card that where really it's hard to use, right? You have to score an agenda before, and it's sitting in the server, and in a fast advanced deck, you really don't want to have you have to be relying on the server existing. So this was an easy swap and to kind of overperformed really for me
Yeah.
when I realized what it could do.
Cool. And so is this the first large event that you got that NWE played this calibration testing to list at
Yep.
EMEA?
Yep.
I mean, I guess it would have had to have been because EMEA was what, like 3 weeks after the set was released, so it'd be
Exactly.
hard for there to be an event where you played it before, though not, I guess, impossible.
Yeah.
So I think, other standouts that are also from the Automata Initiative would be like Slash and Burn Agriculture is another card that kind of stands out as being a pretty kind of big enabler for the list.
For sure. I think that it's maybe even as important as calibration testing, I would say. And in later lists, we'll see that why that's the case. And I think the biggest difference, and I think that's also the interesting part about it. The biggest difference to the regular op list with Skunkworks is that you have a loop that you really want to, or a possible loop that you can do. You can do use the border control to protect a remote, get the calibration testing, use the calibration testing to fast advance an agenda. With the calibration testing trigger, you can get a Tucana, and then with the Tucana, you can get another border control. So you get in this cycle where you go down with op, you can go up again with Tucana, which is really, really useful. That's the first thing that I realized, and I really enjoyed that because yeah, it's just something where you can rely on a specific scoring pattern, and that's just very strong if you can pull that off reliably.
That makes a lot of sense, and like I think it's a good thing. I think the other thing I want to talk, and I think we'll start moving on to some of the like refinements to this list as we keep going. I think one other thing to comment on here is probably the 3x ice wall, which I think is a really interesting include in this list, and I'd love to have you just explain quickly why.
Yeah. I think it's mostly there because you have for one, you don't have as much money as the usual lists, so having a cheap end the run is pretty good, especially in the early turns where you probably want to have a Rashida and just protect it on the cheap. And secondly, and I think more importantly, it's the main target to trash with either extract or by scoring an ASAF protocol to get a spin doctor, and that's very important to have this reliable target. Why? Because you have slash and burn agriculture, and with slash and burn agriculture, if you want to score, you also don't want to feed the runner 2 points. You want to be able to shuffle it back with the spin doctor. So one very common scoring plan is scoring an ASAF protocol with a slash and burn agriculture, then trashing an ice wall to get a spin doctor. Or what you can also do is you can score, even if you have agendas in hand, you can score with Audacity, and then you have some agendas in archives, but you can get a spin doctor through the trash of ASAF protocol and then reshuffle the cards that you want to have back in your deck. So that's the main reason for the ice wall. You could also say any one-cost ice would do the job, but I think the double purpose of being able to protect your Rashida first turn or protect your Sandals for whatever reason with an end the run and being the target for the trash is what makes it very strong in the list.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. So this was EMEA. This is about 3 weeks after. Then Danish Nats is like a month or so later, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think
Not
it
even
was
sure.
maybe 2 months. I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that far away for sure, and it's also
Yeah.
it shows because there's not much change happening
Yeah.
here between the two lists. There's only, I think, it says in the write up, I
Yeah.
switched out an Afsha for a Hortum, and
Yeah. Still
I
did
think
quite
that's
well.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then we get to Worlds, which is another month after this.
Hmm.
And the list has changed, I think, quite a little bit. So I'd love to have you talk a little bit about what you think the like most important changes were and kind of what the reasoning was.
I mean, the obvious biggest change is that I took out one calibration testing to free up some influence.
Yep.
Um, and I realized that I don't really need that many calibration testings because I don't really want to draw them. Because if I draw them, I have to install them, and I don't get them by trashing something, like by trashing the border controller.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
They're
where
much more.
where it really shines.
Yeah, they're much more like tempo negative when you're just kind of having to spend a click
Exactly.
and 3 credits to
Yeah.
go and use them. That's just not
Yeah.
really what you want.
Exactly. So, and since you have your spin doctors very like consistently on the board, it's easy to shuffle them back when you need them. So having one is all that you need. It's also a theme, I think, with Orb, that some cards really only have to be one-offs, since you don't really want to draw them, you want to find them. And when you need them again, you can shuffle them back. So,
Yeah.
and that was the first idea behind it. And the other big thing is that the ice changed a little bit. So I included Tatubola and I think Thimble Rig as well. That's
Yeah.
3 influence
Yes.
that I included. And the thought was, times if I already have a Tucana, or if I can't use a Tucana right now, I don't really have a good 2-cost target, especially not a good 2-cost ice that I want to get. And in this case, I just put in 2-cost ice that I can get when I trash my virus, or when I trash a 3-cost ice with extract. Thimblerig being, I think, the better one of the two, because Thimblerig has additional purpose. It has
Yeah.
the option to swap with a border control to be pseudo double protection on 2 servers when I have only 1 border control rest, which is very nice. The downside of Thimblerig being that it's pretty weak against Aumakua, but that gets outweighed a little bit by having 3 Virus in the deck, which is very strong against Aumakua, and there's also like Sandstone is very good against Aumakua, Winchester is good against Aumakua, Stavka is good against Aumakua. So there's a lot of ice in the deck that's already good against Aumakua, or Hortum for that matter.
Yeah.
So that's not that big of a deal. Tattoo Bola was a different beast. It was just, in my mind, it was the best 2-cost barrier, and that's it. It's when you guys said, yeah, it's probably, I don't really understand. I give you that. It's just not that convincing. All of its abilities are nice. So don't get me wrong. It's just still a good piece of ice, but the other options would have been to have a Ablative barrier, which is also very interesting because it can reinstall all the good cards that you can trash again.
Yeah.
But the problem with Ablative was, in my mind, that it doesn't really work with Extract for one, because you can't install it in the run. And trashing ice during the run, or trashing something, it's only really virus where you can get it and get the value out of it. And that's just, it just doesn't feel right. So that's why I went with Tatubola.
I think I agree, and it's like, you know, it's this funny thing where like Tatubola is a good card. Like I think if this list could like if it didn't have to pay influence for Tatubola, I think it would be like I can even see it being something like a 2x. Like it had, you know, being a 2-cost card that then can make you money, especially in this list, which can be, you know, pretty money strained. Like it's it runs very, very low to the ground. Having that kind of out is really nice to have. But it is tricky to be like, okay, is this the most valuable spend of 2 influence? I think your reasoning about like, okay, well, I have to drop the calibration testing. The second one doesn't make that much sense for the deck, and I think I agree with that. And so then it's about, okay, what's the maximal use? And like, there's not to me a clear replacement for the Tatubola here. I think it's, you know, you'd love to have a more impactful card for that 2 influence, but there's definitely not like a thing where I go, oh yes, obviously this is what you should run instead of Tatubola. in this style
Mm,
list?
I mean, I spend a lot of thought now because of Fight Club, which is happening right now, and I'm
Hmm.
still on the op list. And the ice that I went for now for Fight Club is actually Drafter,
Hmm.
which I like quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, because generally in Wayland it's not that easy to get good face check ice, and
Yeah.
also sentries are a little bit underrepresented, so getting another sentry in there is nice. And also the subroutines are very 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 strong because you have a lot of
Yeah.
cards that you like to recur. Either being it getting back an extract is very nice. I was also getting back a virus or a border control is super nice. So
Yeah, I
uh,
definitely have an unpublished version of my op list somewhere where I just like, oh, I'm going to cut the halfer and then put a drafter in.
yeah.
And I think, I think cutting the Tatu Bolo for a drafter probably makes a little more sense in this setup. But I think it's like drafter does do a lot of things exactly as you said, where like it
Mm.
is a face check punisher against a deck that typically has actually pretty weak face check punishment. Um, and does recursion, and this deck, this is probably the deck where I most want a Jackson Howard over a Spin Doctor, because even though it's such a forward tempo, getting any extra recursion or access to your archives is like so valuable for what you want to be doing.
I think I'm not 100% with you on that because I really like the
That's
instant draw from Spin Doctor. I
yeah,
really
that's
love it
fair.
because especially with Audacity,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
the Spin Doctor and getting back the hand size immediately is very very valuable. But on the recursion
yeah,
side, I would agree.
yeah.
You really like to have as much recursion as you can get.
So I think, having talked about this, let's go and look at some replays. You very kindly sent me, I think, 3 replays.
Mhm.
We'll see. We'll try and go through maybe all of them. Maybe viewers will only see 1 or 2 of these. But this is actually
Mhm.
one where you are not playing op first. But I figured we'll sit over your opponent's shoulder and kind of see
Yeah.
how this deck cooks. And then we've got another replay from around this time frame from you, and then one from Fight Night just last week or so, or a couple days
Yeah.
ago.
It's also interesting. Maybe a little bit of info on this match. This match was preparation for Worlds,
Mhm.
and I'm usually the one in the team that really is excited about AWP and plays AWP a lot, and the other people are like, yeah, this deck's probably good, but we can't really put ourselves on through all the decisions in AWP. So and that's what was one game where Milan Mildesorte
Mhm.
wanted to try it itself to just understand the deck a little bit better.
Cool. All right, so we've got this opening hand: border control, hostile, extract, and double Mavirus. To me, this is probably just a straight mulligan. There's like, if this one of those Maviruses was a useful piece of ice, I think it would be a keep. But as it
I
is,
mean,
I'm not
I
wild
mean,
about this hand.
one of these Mavirus could be a piece of ice because you can use the ability to get an ice. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I would think about it, but it's still super low on credits, and
Yeah.
you're playing against 419. Having the border control is nice and all. And I'm also not stoked about scoring hostile takeover early. That's something that I also realized. Ideally, I want to score the hostile takeover as my third agenda, my fifth point.
Hmm.
So this hostile isn't as nice here anyway. So I would agree. I would also probably take a mulligan.
Okay. My Mild Sort chooses to keep, and I think actually draws pretty well here to just get the Tatubola right into hand.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess, what's your general game plan when playing against 4-1, like against 419 or kind of Crim more generally?
hmm
Um,
I think HQ is the most important server against Crim.
yeah.
You either, I mean, it's a little bit less safe to have only a border con on HQ because if they have Hermes and bounce your eyes on HQ, then it can get a little bit awkward. But I'm mostly trying to get at least 2 pieces of ice on HQ as early as possible.
Hmm.
And also generally, I'm trying to play a little bit slower, like
Yeah.
setting up my board before I start scoring. Yeah.
So with that in mind, like, how would you play out this first turn here?
I think I'm pretty sure that I put the border control on HQ. The question is, do I do that first? Probably not. I think I'm gonna install my virus in a remote, reveal it, then install Tatubola over it, and then install border control on HQ, something like that. And with the idea of using my virus to get what's it called, the Regulus mining license to get up the money. I think that would be my idea. The problem with that play is if you have Tadubola on the remote and border control on HQ, you can't res both. But still, I think I would go for it.
Yeah.
I think letting R&D open is something that you can really do. It's not a really big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, there could be games where your opponent goes like install Hermes, Dirty Laundry R&D, top deck, and then hits you with a diversion, and you just go, okay, that can happen, but that's like that requires a specific 3-card hand plus the top card of R&D being an agenda, which is not the most likely outcome.
And in that case, you still have the Mavirus in the remote. Then you can after they steal the agenda, you can use the Mavirus to get an ice for HQ, or you can. You have still have options. So.
Yeah, I think the other thing I like about the line that you talked about of like install Mavirus, Tachabola, border control is you reveal a Mavirus, which is pretty low information, and so you kind of avoid the 419 tax pretty cleanly. Instead, it basically ends up being that Op here only took 2 clicks effectively, really, and they could have had a third pretty cheaply. Here, I'm probably just trying to draw for solutions with a Spin Doctor.
Amaku. We want an ice, right? We want.
We exactly. Really badly need an ice. The Amaku coming down already is very frustrating because it means we can't just show the Spin Doctor for free.
True.
But I think showing it is fine at the end of the day. It's just a bummer.
Yikes. Extracting the Spin Doctor. Yikes.
And then drawing last click is also very tough here, I think. Discarding a virus, definitely not the ideal situation, but it's survivable. Because it does at least turn off archives. This is why you put border control on HQ so that criminal can't raid for free. And Sandstone pulling its weight here for sure. Okay, so at this point, I'm definitely tempted to try and say, hey, I think we can actually like set up a little bit here. Something like install Mavirus, install Ice Wall, take a credit. Seems like it's probably going to get there to me.
Especially since the Mavirus protects the server as well, because you can purge the Omakua. For sure. I think that would be my play too. I don't know what the last click is. Maybe I draw first click even, but or take a credit. Both are fine.
Yeah, I think to me, I'm probably looking at just taking a credit just to keep the the total up. But fast. I don't love the fast advance here. Just because it feels like you're giving up 2 points. Like it's just a straight exchange for 2 points, and your board state's a little bit behind already.
True. And now that, right, you can give Hermes opening.
Yeah, exactly. Now, fortunately, you didn't draw Hermes till late enough in the turn where it's not going to do a ton of damage. But it felt like to me like, we could do that. We could still do this fast advance line next turn, but we could also do like. We could purge with Mavirus to get a Jacana or and then ice up the archives all in one go. Like we could have made this fast advance tempo positive rather than kind of tempo negative. And I think I'd still put the Mavirus down before the Jacana because again it's just a little bit like we can install the Jacana, it's not gonna hurt us. Oh, actually, you know what? I take that back. I do kind of get why you would install a Tucana here.
I mean, the reasoning is probably you want to score the hostile takeover and get the value out of the Tucana.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Now, I think you're doing a very good job, even at 1 credit, of just applying a lot of pressure and making it so that plays.
Me being the crim player here, right?
Yes, you being the crim player here. And I think I don't think there's anything else really to do here as the corp is to click back up. The Crim player, you as the Crim player actually can get into server 3 here. I think installing cast though made a lot of sense. And so now,
yeah, the thing is, I probably don't want to give the Tattoo Baller credits. I don't know if there's another ice in HQ, so that's why I don't go for the remote. I think.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Hostile as the third point, not as good as the fifth point, but not as bad as the first point either.
Sure.
So this is maybe what are you thinking you would want to do with this Tucana trigger? Because I think there's a lot of different ways that you could look at using this card, and I'm kind of curious what your thinking would be on what you want to grab here.
So my standard idea of the Tucana is something has to convince me that it's better than just getting a border control. So border control is like the first card I'm thinking about. If there's nothing else that I'm really looking for, I think I will always grab a border control for the utility of being able to trigger orb during the runner turn and just being a strong ice overall. I think here border control is a little bit less interesting because there's already an Omakuo's 2 tokens on the board, so it's easily broken. But also the runner is low on credits, so maybe it's still a good idea. What I'm also thinking about is Winchester, because I love having Winchester on HQ.
Yeah.
I mean, basically against any deck, but especially against Crim. And I think the third thing I'm thinking about is getting the staff card to get my op triggered this turn, because I didn't use op this turn. So I could get staff card, trash the ice wall, for example, and
put Rashida in server 3.
Put a Rashida in server 3, or get a spin doctor and put it in a new remote. So I think these are the 3 options that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like that, I almost never think of the Stavka Tucana trigger line. It's just one of those things I don't do very often. But as you said, I'm like, I do kind of like that. The biggest, I would like it more if we had a virus in the remote, but that's because then suddenly it becomes like this huge threat, as opposed to just becoming a 3 credit tax. Though I don't know that the Crim player can realistically spend all their money chasing a Rashida behind a remote. But
yeah, the good thing about getting the staff car is actually we have an extract in hand. We can extract it next turn, and then we can get a 3-cost ice, maybe a sandstone, which is very good on the board right now, and get the extra value. And then we are rich at that point. And when we are rich, I think then it's pretty hard for the Crim to actually contest our scoring plan.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about the border control going on HQ instead of server 3. I imagine it's to deal with like boomerang diversion, which is like right on the edge of what you're capable of doing as the Crim player next turn. It feels like I would rather defend this Tucana remote because I have there's at least one more valuable trigger I can get out of it.
But and I think if I put an ice on HQ, I think I would choose the Winchester over the border control.
Yeah. Here we see a bones. Oh, that's it. I had not thought about the install triggering Amakua, which is definitely a little unfortunate for the corp here.
Yeah, it was also interesting to see that this is something that can happen.
Yeah. And then a fairly large blowout, honestly.
Yeah, we lose our whole remote and 2 points on a single access on R&D.
Yeah.
Also, the bad pubs, like here you can see what the bad pub is doing to us, because
for sure.
The run on the remote was free because of the bad pub, and the run on R&D was free as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and you kind of have to keep paying the 419 tax, but then by taking a turn off, you're really struggling to do much of anything.
I think what I would have considered is just getting rid of the ice wall with extract instead of clicking for a credit.
Yeah, because
that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that way we can maybe even. I think I would always in that situation get a spin doctor, since we can't protect Rashida really well.
Well, I was wondering if you could like. I mean, yeah, as you say that, I'm like, you could extract the ice wall for the Rashida and then put the sandstone on the remote rather than
also possible
on R&D, and then put the Tattoo Bola on R&D. And that way you eat up the 419 trigger, you get your ice in decent positions. Like, I think there's yeah. You could also think about, instead of putting the ice on R&D, putting the virus in the remote as well, and just trying to build something up.
Especially if you I could also extract the ice wall and then get a spin doctor, and you have more options. I think that's something you can do as well. I really like that using extract just for the gain 6, draw 2 cards effect. Which makes it really, really strong. Okay, now we have a lot of turns of emptying the regolith while
this is one of those
Scrim
things
is
where
setting up.
We should probably be using the extract to kind of push our tempo a little bit more. Because we don't, if we were down 3 credits from here because we extracted earlier, or we saved ourselves 2 whole clicks and like made that money by just extracting it, like, I think that would be very good for the speed of the game. Though I will say, as the 419's not putting on the most robust econ show for us here.
And I think one thing that I would have done much earlier is putting the virus down with a 4 token Omakua on the board.
Yeah.
Just be safe.
Yeah.
If something happens.
The other thing that's a little unfortunate is because we spent so many like clicks. Not actually, was the Tucana drawn this turn? Oh no, the Ozef was drawn this turn. Okay. Yeah, because it's like, if you can get them a virus Tucana in the remote, that's what you'd really love to have happen here. I like this Nimble Rig install a lot, because now, and this is the thing that I've definitely had misevaluated when looking at Nimble Rig in this kind of list is, now this border control in HQ is also protecting server 4.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, with 1 click left, the criminal player just literally cannot make it into this server. And so it's just setting up for next. Yeah, I think not installing that boomerang makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, I get. You know what? Putting that on R&D does make a lot of sense, because you're about to score out this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also the trashing the ice wall from the remote makes also a lot of sense.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. Now you have a bunch of discards, but you have the win in hand for next turn. When I have the win in hand for next turn, I'm always discarding the Rashida, I think, just to minimize my odds of getting rifled on HQ. But
there's one reason to keep the Rashida. If the Azaf protocol gets somehow stolen from HQ, then you want to have the option to put a Rashida on the remote and find the winning
for sure.
agenda.
Yeah, no, I like that is like the immediate refutation to that line, and I think a very reasonable one. But I almost wonder if you're supposed to just pop the border control here, because there's not really it just denies the accesses entirely if you can get the last sandstone on R&D, I think.
The problem is the runner can run back. They have 1 click left. So
right. But I don't think op has been used this turn.
So, you say you get a sandstone or something. Just something that
you just swap the thimble rig for the border control, immediately pop it, and then you have sandstones on HQ and R&D, and the runner has 1 click left. So it's no risk of getting things bounced. But at the end of the day, well, I mean, seeing 3 cards, your odds of losing are there's still there's 11 points out. There's still 9 points in R&D, so it's not like it's not impossible.
It's a risk that you don't have to take. It's a risk you don't have to take. Yeah, especially now. Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, this is definitely dodging a little bit of a bullet, but very nice. Yeah, so we didn't see calibration testing this particular game, but I imagine we'll see it in some of the other replays, and we'll have we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what past you may have been thinking when looking at these other games. All right, and now we're on to game 2 with you playing Corp against Test Running's Hoshiko. Apologies about the ID not being there. This is just a artifact of how the replay thing loads on my computer. But this is, I think, This is a 47 card Hoshiko. Do you remember if you know if this is this a internal testing game or a event game?
This is also testing for Worlds. That's where I actually remembered clicking the keep the replay button.
Yeah.
So that's why we have these replays here. I'm not playing that much in tournaments on Jinteki, so that's very rare that I have replays from those or just games from those.
Makes sense. So this is going to be, I'm going to call it like a kind of reg Hoshiko probably then, where it's looking like some kind of mod list, maybe hippos, things of that kind of nature, and companions. Twinning is kind of the end game win button for the runner.
Yeah. I mean, on test running, I think he's a really he really likes playing Freedom. So maybe there's also some shenanigans with Shizzle and Devil Charm. I could see something like that, but we will see.
So this hand's like a borderline keep, I think, from my perspective. It's quite slow, but going something like Sandstone on HQ, Sandstone the remote, Regolith in the remote is like a It's like a totally reasonable first turn. So
it's not the best that we have the calibration testing in hand, and Staffguy is also.
Yeah, that could be an argument for getting rid of it. Is like, oh, I would love to have the calibration testing back in my deck. I would love to have the Stavka and the Sandstones back in my deck, right? So it's like there's nothing, and you can get more gas than this in opening hands.
I think it's kind of a coin flip. Having the Sandstones is really nice. So I would say keeping is better.
Yeah, and you did keep, and I think the border control is a pretty good draw. I don't know if I prefer it on the remote right away, though. I might actually still prefer the Sandstone Regolith Sandstone line.
I actually disagree here. I put the border control on the remote. I think the idea is that even with what is the virus that breaks ice again?
Botulus.
That Botulus is not an out now.
No, I think that's pretty fair.
Not protecting HQ is also fine, since they will get their free access anyway from R&D. So I could have seen. I mean, the idea behind putting the calibration testing in the remote is that it's ready when I need it. So I don't draw the agenda and then I don't have the calibration testing. But now that the remote is blocked by the regulars anyway, it's kind of interesting. I think my thought was I don't want to lose the calibration testing from HQ when he runs it.
I think that's pretty fair. It's like I think I've maybe gotten scarred by like, Anarch just installing Cleaver turn 1, running the remote, and like that actually gets you there against stuff like Sandstone and Border Control. Though it only gets you there if they do it exactly that way. If they go click 1 Cleaver, click 2 run the Sandstone.
I mean, if you have Border Control, you can get the magnet. Or one thing that I also thinking about is just putting an Enigma in the list, because Enigma is also very nice ice to get, and very nice ice to have early when you trash Border Control.
Yep. So this actually, seeing a Solidarity badge immediately is like, oh, maybe this is going to be a little bit more of these like heavy kind of trashing lists.
Yeah. Lets me think of Imp.
Yeah, it doesn't immediately make us all think of Imp, but this is actually a very good start for Anarch with a Bankar turn 1, along with a Solidarity badge and buy a bands to draw more cards. Price, test running is really getting things going here. But this is, I think I'm pretty happy to just click Regolith like 3 times here and be okay. Or, I can also just hedge Sandstone on server 1, click Regolith once. Like, I don't know, there's like some weird different lines you could go for.
I would also like putting an ice on R&D could also be a good idea. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of lines that all are totally fine, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's.
I would like to get the Regulus out of the remote as fast as possible. I think that's one thing that I would like. So clicking the Regulus 3 times is
I'm realizing the one reason you may not want to click it 3 times is because you probably want the second ice on server 1 just to turn off Bankar from getting in for free. So it's like, oh yeah, if we go hedge fund, sandstone on server 1, click the regolith, or just click the regolith twice and then install the sandstone. I think you can give up that slate. Like it's credit worse, but it's okay.
I personally also like the just protecting R&D play, because border control can still turn off banker, and it's not the worst. I personally, now I get extra value here because I can also turn off the buyer bans.
Yeah. Hitting a steel skin, and then now we get the last sandstone out of the deck.
I'm not that sure that this is the right choice, actually. Maybe it's okay. Maybe Magnet would have been better. It's not that easy to
to me, Magnet seems probably marginally better here, just so that you leave one sandstone in the deck for later. Magnet's more resilient to botchless if it ever becomes relevant, right? But you know, it's not going to be it's probably not going to be the pivotal decision of the game or anything.
Yeah, and I also like that not all of the eyes on the board has the same subtype. That can sometimes matter. So if they can contest my remote, then they can't contest R&D, for example.
Yeah.
Or if I put the second sandstone on R&D on the remote, then it requires an additional breaker to get through.
Yeah. I'm definitely thinking here, I'm just like hedge fund, sandstone, goodbye regolith, hello Rashida. I think for me, the drawing 3 cards just seems very, very valuable in this board state.
I think the 1 credit doesn't matter that much, so I can see clicking the regolith instead of playing the hedge fund.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Let's see. I'm deciding to. Yeah, I think your play is better. I think putting the Rashida in the remote. I was a little bit too. I was looking at the value of the lost value by not getting the last Regulus trigger and the op trigger as well. That's also a fun play that you can do that I did right here. You can use calibration testing even though you don't have an agenda to just get the op trigger.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately this comes out ahead because you don't get the Rashida pinhold, right? So now you actually just get to put the Rashida in. So it basically works out. This is a disappointing time to draw the Atlas, of course.
No.
I do think the draw there makes sense, just to try and see if you can get an ice to make this play a little bit more robust. And I actually also agree with you on putting the Rashida in the remote. The Rashida is going to get you a lot more than a blank Atlas does.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since I'm now down to 5 credits again.
Yeah. This is actually a fairly questionable run to me. Just because
giving me 4 credits.
Yeah. Seems not great.
True.
And so not great. It was in fact a misclick.
Also, banker wasn't even on R&D, so.
Oh, I missed that. That's funny. Oh, okay. This is an interesting. Just saying, oh, a card in my hand is worth 2 virus counters on the sandstones. I guess that suggests that. Well, I would say it suggests that there's a cleaver in hand. It maybe suggests there's 2 cleavers in hand. And then next turn, you can get that remote for 1 credit. Very much. That's a possibility. Or there's actually a lot of upside in taking the damage. So if he has like a couple of cards that give you value when they get trashed, there's also an option that could be the case. So Rashida finally fired, thank goodness. I'm kind of curious when you look at this hand, what your kind of line would be, what you're kind of thinking of the play is here.
I'm thinking I have agenda and Tucana, so my first thought is how can I make that happen. So I could see going for Tucana, install agenda, install staff car. Then I'm down to 6 credits. So if they contest, it gets a little bit awkward. Because then I have to rest the staff car probably. Maybe not. Depends on what they install. But if they let's say we assume they have the cleaver. Then we could install the staff car. And they get through with the banker, and then get through the sandstones with just credits. So then I'm losing my agenda, but I get the Tucana trigger, and that's probably not great.
Yeah.
Another option would be to just go for the spin doctor and just try to clean up the hand a little bit, and maybe find a virus to get the sandstones going again. Also, I don't want the Hafron in hand really.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's actually like I kind of like hedge fund, install Tucana, install spin doctor. I guess the question I may be asking myself is do I try and bluff the spin doctor as an agenda, or do I go for the discard to kind of get rid of the cards that are not well positioned in my hand right now?
I sometimes I really like the spin doctor in the remote that's protected play, but more often than not, I put it in the remote and think it's a good play, and then a turn after I realize I really would like to have the spin doctor not in this remote. So
Yeah. I maybe saying, oh, because I already have 2 targets in BC and calibration testing, then I could think about spinning back. It's maybe okay. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see, because I don't think there's a clear, obvious line here.
okay, I'm going for just spin doctor and Tucana. So I make him have the cleaver here. And if he has the cleaver, I'm still getting the Tucana. Oh, he's actually running the archives, so I get the free my virus trigger, which is very very nice. Also,
No,
I'm a little bit
Atlas
hedge fund
fires.
flooded.
Yeah. Not usually a problem you mind, but maybe you're probably not playing all 3 of them here. I guess this is a tricky one because I want to be able to go credit. Actually, no, I want to probably just score the hostile next turn.
Yeah.
So if I'm scoring the hostile next turn, I'm happy to put a Winchester on HQ or.
Yes, exactly. I think that's what I would do as well.
And it is in fact exactly what you did. All right, so yeah, we are seeing this kind of virus Hoshiko style coming in. Oh, Bankar is on HQ. I was like, this is a weird
but that's
run.
That's still three cards down. So
yeah,
I'm happy with that exchange.
Yeah, it was what, like looks like it was a strike fund. Oh shoot. Okay, so it looks like we resolve a Bankar, a strike fund, and a Bankar. So not the end of the world. Not the most high value cards, and you have just drawn a lot with there's what 18 cards out of the deck and only 2 points scored. So it's not a bad draw. It just so happens that all your agents are still in R&D.
Yeah, but I'm still very happy that he did it, because when he's low on cards, Banker is very, very much less of a threat. So now I'm just happy to score the hostile, obviously, getting back to 7 credits, and now it's interesting.
Yeah, to me, I'm like, okay, this is probably a border control on server 1.
Yep. Could also be a border control on HQ, but I think I like server 1 a little bit better. But I decide for HQ. I think it's also fine. Just being on 5 credits is nice.
Yeah.
Obviously exchanging there.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that exchange, but it's not bad, right?
I do like having the Stavka on board.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess to me, I'm like, I would love to kind of put the Stavka on the remote potentially.
I think that's the idea, or where this idea is coming from on your side is because you're playing Rush a lot more. So your remote has to be strong, and you have to protect the agenda in the remote. But it's not the case in this style of deck really that much. And also I have the option to get Thimblerig, and then I can swap it in if I need it.
Yeah, so I think that's
virus
fair.
for Thimblerig, for example, and then swap it at the beginning of my turn is an option that I can do.
I think also like looking at what the runner's capable of, actually having the Stavka on the central is a really nice little like push and pull where it probably does, it could go on a remote. But by being on the central, people, it can serve as a little bit of a gotcha. I do actually think I like this border control and R&D because at this point we're just waiting to draw an agenda, and so it's
especially we have
yeah.
The only reason for the border control on the remote, and we don't really need it because we have the Slimmeric on the remote, is the Rashida.
Yeah.
I personally also last click. That's something maybe if you could pause.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
This last click run is very, very dangerous if people do that against you. Especially
Yeah.
all my servers that are relevant have basically a border control in front of it. And now I'm free to get the calibration testing, and the calibration testing represents another fast advance tool, so I can even draw on my first click. It can't really, sadly, can't fast advance the slash and burn agriculture. It's still something that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, I think this is one of those things where it's just like, if people are looking for a lesson of how to play against this list, just one of the things you can't really do is run last click against a border control in a lot of cases.
Or you have to be very aware of the consequences, because there can be some very tough things that is happening then. So
yeah.
Okay, I'm going for the slash and burn agriculture in the remote.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you have a second? So I'm trying to remember. Oh no, if you had that, so I think the idea here is, okay, I can score it this turn. But virus gives me a lot of purge access. It's a little bit odd because your server's not that resilient to really anything here. Like the runner can actually just run this for 2 credits.
I don't like it
for 2 credits
retrospect.
Again. Yeah.
I don't like it in retrospect. I think my thought was I can't really protect the remote anyway, but then putting in the slash and burn. Maybe I'm using my virus here. Not yet. Okay, but I get another my virus. I could have used the virus instead to get the Tucana, but it's probably not. I think I still don't like what I did there. I think the better plan was just put the Rashida in and make him spend a lot of resources to get rid of the Rashida.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're
something like I do now here.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is now a very comfortable sail through, and like while like you could argue like knowing the contents of your hand, the HQ run is more valuable. But I think looking at the board state and how you played last turn, the R&D run actually makes a lot more sense. I also like the Spin Doctor usage here quite a bit. Get to just tear some things down, and yeah, now you're sitting very comfortably, and can just go and score out.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think a very nice finish. The slash and burn play maybe could have saved you probably a turn, but doesn't particularly matter.
Maybe I wanted just to make him not focused on the centrals too much, but I think it would have been maybe even the same if I just put the Rashida in instead of the slash and burn agriculture, and having the extra fast advance tool would have been just nice to have.
Yeah, no, I think, and this also shows like this deck scores out has a very, very robust game plan. Once the runner gets, we saw almost the complete like death rig for the format of Turbine, Cleaver, Buzzsaw. It was missing the echelon or whatever backup.
Maybe Mimic.
Killer here. Yeah, maybe Mimic, maybe Numb. I don't know what test running's on. Maybe just a second echelon, right? And it just says, okay, yeah, you can set that up, but you probably can't set that up before this deck gets to 5 points, and it can fast advance out from 3 points too, which I think is a really kind of robust little plan.
For sure.
All right, pause.
It's also interesting. It's interesting. I think I was also in my mind. I was already on I'm just fast advancing out, and I don't want to really score in the remote too early in this situation. Like I conceded the remote basically. I conceded the remote, and you don't really have to do that, but it's very interesting when you choose to do that, to concede the remote and not protect it anymore that highly.
So this is your version for this is recorded just like a few days ago, I think, or maybe last week. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Friday night for me. So
okay. Yeah.
2 days ago.
Yeah. 2 days ago at time of recording, maybe a week ago at time of release.
Yeah.
So you're playing up against Lat, which I think, for the Rush, like Managarm heavy versions, is probably the worst possible matchup. I suspect is a slightly better matchup for the calibration testing list.
I love this matchup.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very good for the op deck.
Yeah. This is also, we should say, open lists, so what RRTs has in his list. So yeah, I don't know that informs. I don't know how much that informed your game plan. I'm assuming I haven't seen the list, but I'm assuming it's a turbine big rig deck, and probably
is actually.
And I'm assuming it's playing Clot, which is like the big thing you need to know for going into this matchup.
It has Clot, and its winning strategy is it has 2 wheels and plays the deep dive.
Yeah.
So that's also important to know, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So this is sort of the, oh shoot, I forget what it's called, like the bicycle lat deck or whatever that was like second at UK Nats or first UK Nats, I forget.
I forgot actually. At least I didn't even look at the decks much from UK Nats, so I don't even know.
Okay. To me, this hand, like, all the cards in it are fine, but I kind of would like to mulligan for something because, like, it's a little bit odd, I guess, of a hand.
There's 2 redeeming factors of this hand which I really like. It has Winchester, which I love to have early, so I have 1 card that I can put on its shoe, and it has Above the Law, which is very strong if you can score it early and kill a daily cast. And I'm keeping this hand because of the Above the Law, because it can be super strong early too. And that's also one thing that I want to mention about the Lat deck. It has to have a very good economy star to be able to set up the rig. So if I can just take a little bit of credits out of that early game, that's super, super, super strong. And that's why I keep the hand.
I think that's a very good reason to keep the hand. And, I think, again, I like this, your first turn play. It's probably what I would do. You don't really want to put the Above the Law on the board, but you do want to set it up so you can go for next turn. And you do want the runner to, like, go in and put some resources on the board before you, like, in this exact situation, maybe it would be nice to have the Above the Law because you kill a full daily casts, right? But you don't know that your opponent's not going to run and start messing up that plan. So
exactly, yeah. But also, one thing I take away from this first turn is he's probably not contesting servers that have ice in front of it. So that's why I put the Above the Law in the remote without protecting it any further. I think the reasoning for him behind not contesting anything that is protected by ice is that he doesn't want to give me the op trigger or the extract target. So it's actually kind of a good strategy to not let the op deck rest any ice, because extract gets turned on by letting them rest something.
Yeah, I think you could say the argument for this lat deck is like, okay, I can let you have 4 points, but if I can stop you at 4, I'm probably doing well. If you stop, if you can stop the obelisk at 5, you have to be clearing every potential Mephiris install, which does sometimes become challenging. But in theory, you can be a little bit more conservative. Okay. Well, we see Doom Rig assembled quite quickly here.
It's
not a ton of money.
And still more money than I would have liked, and I'm very, very happy that I was able to kill the daily cast, because I think these 6 credits would have mattered a lot. Yeah, and okay. Here we see the whole rig, and he also runs HQ, and I'm not. I think I'm also on very low on credits, so
no, you're on 3 credits here, so it is tricky to you can't res the Winchester. I'm not even sure if you should, if you could, kind of thing.
Exactly. I mean, it's still very expensive.
Yeah.
So,
it would be, I guess it would be 6 for the runner to break. So it's not implausible to go and do. But drawing an agenda is not really what you want here.
No, not at all.
This is one of those ones where do you extract the unres ice wall on the remote here or not? I kind of start to wonder.
I go into a tank here because I'm not really sure. I don't, if I can help it, I don't want to score the hostile now that the whole rig is on the board.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually going for the extract on the unrest ice wall here. But yeah.
Yeah.
I go for the draw first because I want to see, can I find
Yeah.
something better that I can do? Maybe I find a spin doctor, or maybe just something that I can put in server 1 with a staff gun on top or something like that. But
I will say Hordem is pretty good here because it Buzzsaw, until the turbine comes down, breaks it for 4, and money is still finite.
Yeah. And I'm going exactly for what I said. I'm extracting the ice ball, putting the Hordem down to prepare the install.
Yep. And
now we see the Winchester Res.
Yeah, we see the Winchester Res, and runner does kind of have to pay through this, and there's not a cheaper way, I think, than just echeloning through, because I think they want to protect both their hardware and their program, which I guess they could trace for 5.
They actually chose to pay here. They chose to pay, and I think it's better because obviously paying doesn't give me as much options. I cannot pay into the traces, but they didn't choose to break the hardware sub, so they lose the symbol chip, which I found interesting. I don't really know what the reasoning was behind that.
Yeah.
And also, if you can pause for a second, they played Creative Commission on their last click. And in my mind, I was like, okay, they had the Creative Commission in hand when they made that play, so they could do that. But what actually happened is they drew, which I looked afterwards in the replay. They drew the Creative Commission and played it afterwards. So maybe they thought about trashing a Rashida if I had it in hand or something. I'm really not sure about the.
Yeah, I guess also a Tucana in hand. Like, there's a couple of 1-cost trashers that they may have been valuing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Because obviously the question is that worth the
simul chip? Yeah.
The simul chip. Yeah.
I think you could make the argument. I mean, like, when you steal the Atlas, I think it's totally fine. If you don't know you're going to steal the Atlas, I think it's much riskier. Though I will say, like, they do have their full rig set up, and you're only on 2 points, so this may not even come down to clot lock the game as sort of the central piece. Stealing the
Atlas,
I was
very happy in that situation.
Yeah. Hostile score, you don't love it, but you're on 3. You're still very much in this game now, especially now the simul chip is gone, right?
I think there was the option of clicking for a credit and extracting the sandstone, and then putting a drafter down maybe, which might have been better, but still fine with scoring the hostile, getting it out of circulation, because it's the 1 point, like it's one of the 4 agendas that they need to win.
Yeah, and I think also like there's neither the Tatu Bola or the Thimble Rig are great targets. The Regalith also isn't like a card you're super excited to get, though. I guess maybe you could like.
There's no Tatu Bola in the deck anymore. There's no Tatu Bola in the deck anymore.
Right, because the drafter's in there. Yeah,
there's a drafter in there. And also I cut the half rune. I only have like the Stavka for value, and I put in it a second magnet and a second Thimblewick, because I realized Thimblewick is just the best 2-cost ice, and I really want to have it as my target. So I'm only getting the Thimblewick in that situation, and it's not great on this board.
Yeah. I do like the draw here. I'm definitely thinking like, okay, can I just kind of bluff Rashida Stavka in server 2 and then make the call based on if the runner chooses to challenge it or not? I could also just see because like drafter is a little, now that they've got all 3 breakers down, is a little bit underperformant, right? It's only 2. It's like a runner pays 2, I pay 3. And you want to be trading credits a little bit better against the lat deck because it just does make so much money.
True. Also, don't forget the bad pop. The bad pop makes
that's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. My thought actually is extracting the sandstone and putting the Stavka on the remote and the Rashida in there. I think that's actually what I'm doing.
Yeah, so it looks like you end up because I think you click to draw the Audacity first, which I think made sense. And I think you do the way the game is going, you probably do need the tempo. Like you can't. It's difficult to say, I'm just going to sit on this Rashida for a turn and let the runner set up, because
Yep.
if you take a turn off and Lat takes a turn to set up, like you're falling a little bit behind as the corp here, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. But I could
and-
see, yeah. Well, I mean, it works out in the end. I don't even have
Yes.
to make him spend the money or make him go through the remote and just get the Rashida.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah, no, that is very nice for you. The Azef going down the remote honestly seems fine. Like I could see.
I would personally even consider, and I think it's something that I do, just getting the Spin Doctor out and having the Azef to get Audacity out. Because if the Spin Doctor lives for a turn, then that's obviously great. But also I don't really need the Spin Doctor. So if he contests the Spin Doctor, I can still fast advance the SF.
Yep. Okay. So I guess to me, I'm looking at install an agenda, install a sandstone, and go. I can't res. I guess you can't res everything there, which is a little bit unfortunate. So that actually makes the extract make a ton of sense. Oh, the con is really interesting.
Yeah, personally, I find that interesting because the reason behind this is I think I really need the money, and I'm also not sure I want to put down the agenda here because I think he can get in the remote, and I much rather like him to pay for the remote and not get something out of it than being able to score the agenda out of the remote instead of fast advancing. That's basically it, and that's why I keep the SF in hand, and I also like the protection of R&D now that he still doesn't have the turbine.
Yeah.
But now he obviously goes for the turbine, and that's where still I'm using the Stavka here. Just that's also an interesting thing here. I'm trashing the Tucana, which is maybe not necessary, but it's the best thing to trash here. And getting the ice wall gives me a good target for the SF trash next turn when I can
like that a lot. No, I think that's a very heads up play. Turbine coming in, just right through the Stavka, and then jacks out. Yeah.
He was on 14 credits before the run. Now he's on 4, which is it's crazy valuable raising that Stavka in that situation.
Like this is why I'm like, oh yeah, cutting half run can often be correct because even though it doesn't like do the huge blowout that Hoffer and Stavka can do, getting rid of credits is just as valuable and doesn't cost influence with Stavka. So
yeah. I could
I'm
also one thing I didn't do
before here. Oh,
never
mind. It's so that you can trash the ice wall and go again.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Took me a second.
One thing I could have done instead is just trashing the Stavka to get a 3-cost instead.
Yeah.
So could get him a virus, for example, but no server is really protected well enough to do that. So I think I want the refund on the Spin Doctor. So just getting 2 cards again after the fast ones. Here, get a little bit lucky after getting unlucky twice, like losing the 2 out of 5 and the 2 out of 4 before, and now getting the win on the 1 out of 2 out of 2.
Yeah,
and this is pretty straightforward. Exactly. Yeah. He's low on credits. I have a border control. This is perfect, basically. I have the agenda in hand. I have the border control. The border control draw was huge, actually.
Yeah.
He's just going for credits. Border control just wins me the game here.
Very nice. Yeah, this is a very nice recovery, and I think this is one of the matchups that can be really interesting. And I think it was cool to see you kind of manage the economy and kind of like level back up into a very clean closeout. And
and I think 2 important parts, like 2 moments that were really, really shifting the game, was having the Winchester cost him a lot of money, and then the Stavka costing him again lots of money. And then you see in the end, it's actually the credits that were the problem, and
Yeah.
not no setup or specific cards. It was just
Yeah. And you know,
wasn't enough money.
your comment about sniping the daily casts,
Yeah.
you know, I think that really was, and you know, it's like, oh yeah, if he had, you know, 6 more credits, like he gets to run twice this turn, and
Exactly.
because that server was going to cost 2 credits after bad pub. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, I think you're right to identify like this is a very kind of snowbally matchup. And you're able to just kind of disrupt the runner snowball just enough to kind of pull out ahead, which I think is well done. So we didn't see any replays of this deck against Mulch. How do you feel like, you know, I think that's, you know, I feel a little bit amiss if we didn't at least talk about one of the most popular runner decks in the meta. So how do you feel like this matches up into Mulch?
That's a very interesting question, and one that I don't feel very competent in answering because I didn't play a single game against Mulch with this deck.
Okay.
But because I had a kind of a hiatus between Worlds and now the Fight Club tournament, and
that's
also
yeah, Mulch
in the meta that I'm
very
playing
recent.
in, like also in NWE, the people are not really high on Mulch, so Mulch, and so it's not happening that much that I play against it, and I mean, in theory, I think it should be kind of okay. You're rushy, you rely too heavily on remote play, so you can also skip a turn installing cards so that they don't get extra value from their called the draw card miller card thing. You have Mavirus, which is in theory very strong against the shenanigans they do with cookbook and symbol chip and stuff. So I think the matchup is at least decent, and if not very, very good for you. Yeah. I think maybe I played against it once. I usually also don't struggle too much against Anarch. I think like the general, like the usual base Anarch
kind of builds.
The one deck that I found difficult to play against is the Acer Lamp deck that also NWE ran at Worlds. The one where you have all the run events, and you take a lot of mills, and sometimes these mills are really, really annoying because you all of a sudden you don't have the targets that you want to have for your extracts and stuff.
That's been one of the matchups where I consistently go, oh, this is really annoying because like you know, this is a 10-turn game where you've used up, you know, 29 cards, and Essa just says, oh, but what if half of those just were in the bin and never accessible to you, and like you kind of your cards in op, I often feel like you're getting value out of like you're trying to extract value out of your entire deck to go and generate the win, and you use most of your deck in most games. And so just losing access to a good chunk of your deck does hurt the deck a little bit disproportionately.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jackmade, thank you so much for sharing some time with me. I've really enjoyed this chat and going over these replays.
I can give it right back to you. It was also very enjoyable for me, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. And with that said, thank you everyone for watching. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, and I hope to have more stuff like this for you pretty soon.
Bye.
Bye.